Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am here with a book review for you today. I am very excited about this one. I have been looking forward to it for a while. It is Tell the Wind and Fire by Sarah Rees Brennan. I received a copy of this in advance through NetGalley, which is why I'm able to release this video on the day that the book is released. Since it is coming out on the day that it is released, I will not be including spoilers for this book other than basic premise and characters. Tell the Wind and Fire is a sort of modern day urban fantasy retelling of Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities, which I heard that and I went, oh, that sounds interesting, except I didn't actually really know anything about Tale of Two Cities, and maybe if I knew some stuff about Tale of Two Cities, I wouldn't have been quite as enthusiastic. Basically, my entire knowledge base of Tale of Two Cities came from the fact that I read the Wishbone version back when I was about 9, so basically all I could tell you was something French Revolution mumble twins. That was about it. That was all I knew. I think you don't need to know Tale of Two Cities in order to enjoy this book, so if you haven't read it, never fear, I hadn't really read it either. The plot begins when Lucy and her boyfriend Ethan are coming back from a weekend on Martha's Vineyard when the train is stopped and Ethan is arrested by the light guards, accused of treason, of passing information to what are known as the Sans Merci, which are a radical group living in the Dark City, and they are about to behead him when Lucy runs out and informs them that he is the son of Charles Stryker and Mark Stryker, who are prominent council members of the Light City. The guards, however, are not really listening to this, so Ethan's life is only spared when his doppelganger Carwyn steps out of the car that is reserved for people from the Dark City, and in doing so he discredits their eyewitness account because Ethan and Carwyn have exactly the same face. We then find out what doppelgangers actually are, which they are beings created illegally by dark magic. When someone is on the brink of death, they are able to be saved through a dark magic ritual, but in doing so, another being is created that has the exact same physical form as the person that has been saved. So there are some basic world building things that we find out very quickly. We find out that there is a light city and a dark city. They're living in what used to be New York. So the light city is what we would know as the island of Manhattan, and the dark city is what we would think of as the Bronx, Brooklyn area. This is technically an urban fantasy series because it is dealing with magic rather than science, but the way that it affects society is actually closer to science fiction, which is something that I thought was really interesting because this introduction of light and dark magic has completely changed the fabric of society. So what we eventually find out is that Lucy's father was a light magician who was sent into the Dark City in order to work in the Dark City to provide healing and things like that, because he was a light magician healer. And he met Lucy's mother while in the Dark City. She was the daughter of a family of mostly dark magicians, but she herself was a light magician, indicating that there had been a mixing of light and dark in her family, which the Light City likes to pretend doesn't exist. Dark magicians are not allowed out of the city, and a marriage between Lucy's father and her mother would have been illegal, so they actually ended up living in just houses that were side by side and didn't publicly acknowledge their relationship in any way. And Lucy's mother is killed when Lucy is fairly young, which drives her father to some acts of desperation, which end up catching the attention of the light guards, in which he is then imprisoned and sort of driven mad by the cages that he is put into. So Lucy, in an effort to save her father and get her and her father out of the Dark City, ends up crafting this narrative about how the woman that he was going after wasn't her mother, she was just their neighbor, and she manages to get public opinion on her side and ends up getting her father and her out and into the Light City, which is where she meets Ethan. So Lucy is in a very particular situation in that she was raised in the Dark City but now lives in the light, so she is able to see the whole of the system more clearly than people that live in one or the other. And so she is very clear-minded about how disastrously oppressive the system is. So another element of how the world building works is that light magicians require dark magicians in order to continue to use their magic, because using too much light magic builds up in the blood, and if it isn't drained out by a dark magician, it will cause the user to burn up. And so the dark cities are always kept close to the light cities, but no one from the dark city is ever allowed to leave. And Lucy has the line of narration of, "We always hate those we rely on." So one of the themes that the book grapples with is the theme of innocence and whether or not innocence can really exist in systems of horrific, oppressive, systemic violence, because one of the things that we see is that Ethan is very kind and very generous, but the reason he is allowed to be kind and generous is because he is the top family in the city, and the rest of his family is willing to be absolutely ruthless in order to keep him safe. Because one of the things that happens very early is the guards that saw Carwyn, his doppelganger, who is illegal and evidence that his family participated in dark magic, they're all killed. And this is ordered by Ethan's uncle. So Lucy herself is also a wonderfully interesting character because she is absolutely ruthless as long as she is trying to protect someone else. There is a line of narration that is actually fairly late in the story but doesn't really spoil anything, but it basically perfectly illustrates who she is, which is she says, "I was not like Ethan, always trying to be good, or Carwyn, who believed he was bad. I did not feel as though I would ever have any of their convictions in the rightness or wrongness of their actions. All I knew was who I loved and what I wanted. I felt strong enough to do what needed to be done." And I just kind of feel like Lucy is basically a dissertation on what it means to be a hero and ruthless. So basically a dissertation on what it means to be both a hero and a Slytherin, just to wrap that in with Harry Potter real quick. So the title of the book actually relates to this because the full line is "Tell the wind and fire to stop, but don't tell me." And this is something that Lucy has basically taken as her life's motto. She will do whatever it takes to save the people that she loves. Now, as you might have guessed, I said something about the French Revolution with Tale of Two Cities, and it does kind of have a reign of terror type aspect to it, so there's a lot of bloodshed and violence in this book, but oh my god, it is so good. And it just grapples with a lot of big questions about living in systems of violence and what can be done to remedy them, and how violence generally leads into more violence. Like, even when the sort of regime changes over, oftentimes these cycles of violence just continue, and, you know, how do we break that? How do we get out of it? And I thought that it was just masterful. Yes, it is slightly emotionally devastating, but also it is wonderful. So that is actually going to be it for my review of Tell the Wind and Fire by Sarah Rees Brennan. I hope I have convinced some of you to give this book a chance, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!